Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Japanese Shabaru podcast. We are starting off today with Secrets of the Silent Witch, episode 2. So, I think this one was probably a bit of a step up from the last week's episode because it does involve a lot of Monica and just her trying to get through her first day at this academy that she is supposed to attend under a false alias, and it really shines a part of her that we've known from the last episode, and it really tries for us to get to understand how she's really trying to break free of her shell. So the episode starts off with her and the princess just kind of like going over about what's going to happen once they're there, and how she is going to do everything in her power to make sure Monica has a good stay at this academy, while also not necessarily getting him not necessarily getting her identity be revealed as well. So she pretended to be this ugly step sibling that abuses her and makes fun of her, just so Monica could have her own private space, because she didn't want to share a room. Obviously, she's still going through a lot of trying to break out of her own anxiety and her own shyness. So this was a good way for this princess to help her and have her own free space where she can actually try to do things on her own, and they take things slow as her days continue. But she kind of has this memory of her and her father, and how her father was also very into uh, numbers and maths. And one of her this like really early memories is of her and her father just kind of giving her this measuring tape, which she was like playing with it fully, like measuring everything, taking numbers of everything. So you already start to see kind of like how much she loves numbers, and as if it wasn't evident enough from the first episode where her entire cabin has a bunch of numbers written all over. So, and we also get explained, not explained, but it's given a hint as to why she has so many numbers in her cabin. But um, while this is happening of her trying to get this room, though, the student council kind of has comes into inquiry of somebody stealing funds from them, or from a specific budget that they allocated for something else. And one of the proper student councils is framed or was an accomplice to somebody stealing this money from them. So they when they confront this person, Aaron, I believe was his name, they they pretty much get nothing out of him because for some reason his memory is clogged up, which we kind of get a hint as to why that is later on, or what it could possibly be later on in the episode. And they are not buying that he doesn't know who it is, and that he was the only one involved. So they're kind of trying to use him as bait for the other guy eventually, I'm assuming. And then they take him away. Monica just gets in there, tries to figure out a way to get to the prince, or to find a way to get to the prince, because she needs to know who the prince is in order to protect him, because that's her initial goal, or her initial job that she was requested by Lewis. And and even though she was the one requested, she noticed how the princess that she paired up with to go in this mission, she has a lot of acting skills. So to her, it was more so like, man, this princess is more suited for this spy work than I ever will be. So kind of wants she really wants to get out of it, but at the same time she's afraid of what Lewis is gonna do. So and plus she it seems like she wants to be useful to people, so she can't really reject them. So there's a lot of things working for her. But when they have her be properly introduced to the class, or like have her introduced to the class, the teacher tries to get her to like give her greetings, and she just freezes up, like can barely speak, just kind of like whispering a bit, and then just completely silent. And the the teacher doesn't really quite get what's happening at first, so he's like, this is a prestigious school, like we have a very high standard, so like you need to like properly introduce yourself so we know what's what's happening. Uns and then once again she just like completely freezes up. I think it's a lot. This really just shows how she is in an uncomfortable situation right now. She feels kind of trapped. She doesn't know how to get out. So instead of like trying to confront it and trying to put her best foot forward, she just kind of freezes up. And yeah, like the teacher eventually notices, okay, well, this isn't gonna work out. So sends her away, and lo and behold, she meets like the first person who this she's probably gonna get close to in the story, which is Colette, who randomly decides to like just go near her, try to ask her like, be a good person, good neighboring classmate, and asks her about her hair and if she's ever done it some other way or why is it only like that. And she says that that's the only hair she knows how to do, or like the only thing she has practice to do. And Colette decides to ask her if she can do her hair, and does her in a other way that she wasn't accustomed to before. And even though Colette was putting up this nice, not putting up, but she did this nice deed of like trying to help her overcome her anxiety, trying to give her confidence by changing her look into something like more, more newer, more fresh. The other people that are in the class were kind of mocking her a bit, like, "Oh, look at her, she's hanging out with uh, Rick Rack, and she obviously feels like she's up so much better than her. She's only doing it to appease her own self." So there's already like back background talk about her and how she wants to always feel superior to everybody. So it's really something that probably is going to keep getting delved into in this as the series continues. So I'm looking forward to really diving deeper into Colette. And after that encounter with Colette, Monica decides, okay, well, I need to go eat something, and then she tries to make her way to the garden where supposedly there's nobody there. So she wanted to find a nice quiet place away from everybody, away from having to deal with people, uh having to talk to anybody or be made fun of by anybody. So she eventually finds this nice spot, but she notices there's somebody already there, and it was none other than the second prince that she's supposed to protect. But because she found them, they had already laid out a trap for the person that's supposedly with cahoots with Aaron about stealing the budget. So they kind of like grab her, thinking she's part of she's with them, or even more so part of an assassin group. Which eventually, the prince kind of lets him know, like, hey, listen, she's probably harmless, and just let her go. And at one point, somebody drops a this pod, and it was gonna land straight on Monica. So the prince tries to cover for her, and Monica ends up covering for the prince. Obviously, the prince doesn't notice that she used magic because she didn't incantate anything. And they have this really nice moment, some like this not intimate but kind of like cute moment that in other like romance series would be like, oh, this is one of those moments. But instead of being that, Monica just passes out and faints. So that really triggered a lot of her anxiety, probably went through the roof. And instead of like holding it in, her body just completely shut down. So it was made to be funny, but also it's kind of like, okay, well, this is really crippling her a lot. And it's probably something that throughout this series and throughout her time in this academy is gonna be pushed forward more, and it's gonna make her become uh, more talkative and break out of her shell. Hopefully, it doesn't mean that she's gonna lose her ability to do magic without incantation. But there, then afterwards, we have like a mini like flashback that Monica is dreaming up of how her one of her stepfather or like her uncle or somebody that was raising her earlier on before she became a mage, how he felt that her father had put this put her in his care, and it was more of a baggage, and that's probably what I'm assuming has caused her to have such anxiety, because this this figure that was raising her did not appreciate having to deal with her, having to feed her or bet or anything of that sort. So that's probably why she closed her emotions in, and why she can no longer really talk to people, because the only time she's actually talked to some other people after her father passed away, and having to deal with that grief, it just like com- completely ruined any way of her to communicate with anybody. And even like after she wakes up, and she goes back with Nero, her cat familiar, uh, they kind of like were talking about it, and how like she could just erase memories with some mind magecraft on herself, and she pointed out that if you do that, it could really mess you up. Like, so it's not really recommended to perform it on yourself or perform it on anybody else, which I think is what happened with the Aaron in the earlier episode, where he tried to remember the person's face that he helped or that told him to do this stealing from the budget, but he couldn't remember. This was probably due to the fact that somebody performed magecraft on his mind. And while Nero was there trying to like help her kind of get rid or get better at handling being around people by transforming into somebody, he noticed there was like a shady person outside, which Monica was like, yes, it is kind of shady. And she's like, oh, but I sort of like know him. And we get into later on like how she tried to, in the next day, she tried to do her hair in the same way that Colette did it, but she was having difficulty. She's like, I never really thought about uh, hair being such an important part. Like, this is new to me that I actually want to do this. So it just goes to show that at some point she kind of gave up on her looks, just kind of like threw it off, and just focused on fully becoming a mage. And it was also because her anxiety, like obviously she wasn't going to be around people, so she didn't feel the need to like really do her hair or do her makeup, any of that sort. But now that Colette is kind of like slowly opening her up to like this option, she wanted to kind of throw herself in there, try to figure out what was the best option and how to replicate what she did with her hair. So she went up and asked Colette like, "Hey, can you show me how to do that again?" And also like she thanked her for like doing her hair the previous times. And this is where we kind of like she kind of like, well, where Colette kind of like felt kind of pushed her away in a bit. And then Monica had to kind of like point out that she has she has insecurities of herself, right? She doesn't feel feels extreme shyness and extreme anxieties while being around people, while having to talk to people or talk in front of people. And this is where we learned that Colette is actually also has some insecurities of herself, and how like whenever she talks, she feels like people find her boring. And this kind of brings up a nice thing to bond over, where Monica also says, well, I'm in the same way, where when I talk about numbers, people find me boring as well. And this is kind of like a nice sharing of like, yeah, we may be like different, but we do have some similarities, and it doesn't always have to. Our differences don't always have to push us apart. So I like that they were finally able to like spend a bit more time, and she did her hair again, and then she was escorted to where the prince was, where they start trying, where she kind of lets them know, listen, why were you outside at night without supervision? And the prince kind of played it off like, yeah, that wasn't me. But then she started getting into this whole rant about how these numbers kind of aligned with all his measurements, and it was just rambling about a bunch of numbers. Where eventually the prince was like, okay, well, I'm doing this because I'm trying to find this assassin person that's trying to kill me. So if you can do that, if you think you can do that, I won't go out at night anymore. And now Monica has accepted even more work on top of what she already has. And yeah, I really like this one. Really starting to open up to Monica. Really diving. Hope we dive more into her backstory later on, or as this series progresses, and see her get closer to people. So I like it. 8 out of 10 for me. Tougen Anki episode 1. So this anime is really cool. It's giving me a lot of Bleach vibes, at least me personally. Well, and also a bit of Dead Man Wonderland vibes, kind of mixed in together. So I think this one's main story is gonna focus a bit on the lore of the Momotaro in Japan, but also it's its own kind of spin to it, where essentially the backstory to this anime is that the Oni race has been hunting and ruthlessly kind of killing humans until Momotaro came in and fought them off. So ever since that happened, the Oni race has kind of been at war with the Momotaro descendants for like thousands of years, and there hasn't been really a way to ease the conflict since then, and it's only just kept getting passed on from generation to generation, and that's how this anime kind of starts off with letting us know that side of things. But interesting enough, the our main character Shiki is part Oni, and in the beginning, the Momotaro agent kind of like picks him up after having slain probably one of either his father or like somebody at the scene, and decides to raise him despite his junior kind of telling him that's a bad idea. You know, like Oni bring Onis bring disaster, and they're not they. It's nothing good can come from raising one. He'll turn on you, and he'll turn into a demon just like the rest of them would. But he decides to put that aside and raise him as his own son. So when we finally meet Shiki, like 15 plus years down the line, where he gets expelled from school because he's constantly fighting somebody, and the dad kind of comes in and starts lecturing him about why he keeps all these guns around the place, and don't you know that we have to run a business here, which they run like a liquor business or like a liquor store. And I said, then after a little bit, the same junior that told Shiki's dad not to take Shiki home with them decides to pay them a visit, being more battle scar, having more battle scars, I should say, and decides to just, instead of waiting for Shiki to gain his actual powers, decides he's gonna go and take him out. Which at this time Shiki doesn't realize that he's part Oni. He just thought he was human, and him and his dad had a kind of like a falling out as this guy attacked them, or before this guy attacked them, and he kind of told his dad, like, you know, like, one of the things that I'm grateful for is the fact that we're not actually blood related, which just gets which is really interesting as the episode goes on, because despite him saying this, the father does save him from this Momotaro agent, and then they kind of have to go on the run. And even though like he hit him with his car, like the guy obviously deflected because of the Momotaro power powers and how they work. And Shiki gets eventually captured by him, and is about to get an annihilated or sent off. And the father comes in and it's like, okay, well, it's time for the adults to kind of like handle things now. And it there was like such dead flags to that, and the father does hold off his own for a bit, and we learned that these like black mists is how the Momotaro agents are able to fight off these Onis, and being even playing field, because then because if not, like the Oni would just like run rampant. And the father tries to explain to Shiki while he's being hanged up, like, he's probably a Momotaro descendant. We have been at odds for one another for a while, and it's been really been like that for thousands of years. But just because we've been at odds doesn't mean that a innocent child deserves to die just for being born into an Oni. You haven't committed any crimes, so we shouldn't be punishing you for something you have not yet done. And, but we learn, interestingly enough, that Onis, just like Shiki, have blended into society and have become harder to track down because of that. And the Momotaro descendants obviously, or an agency, obviously have to also stay in hidden. They can't really go out in public and announce that they hunt Onis, as there's both of these seem to be kind of like secret organizations of their own. And despite Shiki's father's best efforts to try to beat his junior, it's just been too long, and since he retired and hasn't fought anybody, and this guy has been in constant battles, you can see that he has scars and very battle oriented. So he was able to take care of Shiki's dad, and Shiki wonders to himself, like, is this it? Am I just gonna allow this guy to kill my father and not do anything about it? And that's when his Oni powers start to awaken. Like, you love the animation of how his power started to awaken. It's like his eyes started get dripping blood, and then he just went on full demon mode at this guy. And he this is when we learn like the reason why the Momotoro's descendants have to keep battling on, is they fear that if they awakened like Shiki just did and can't really control themselves, they'll cause wreckage to humanity and to the world at large. But uh, despite this guy's best effort, Shiki just is able to use like Oni's abilities. Instead of these black mists that the Momotoros can use, they are able to manipulate blood. And funny enough, like, because of all the weapons we've seen Shiki have in his room, his Oni form has been able to produce these weapons through his blood, and he uses that against this Momotaro agent, and not necessarily overpowers him, but does give him a fair enough fight where it's not as one-sided. And eventually, he has him on the ropes, nearly about to annihilate him, and Shiki comes to his senses. So it seems this demon form or this Oni form completed kind of makes Shiki lose sight of everything, but also gains a tremendous power. So when he comes to his senses, he can't really defend himself, as he doesn't realize why or how he is able to do that, and or what happened even. So the Momotaro agent comes for his life once again, and Shiki's father gets in the way and gets pierced. And of course, that's like the father's last act was to save his son, and then he tries to play off the okay, these are my last words, so you need to listen to me carefully. He's like, no, he's like, you have to get stronger, strong enough that nobody can take away your freedom. Not the Momotoros, not the Onis. You need to be strong enough to defend yourself and defend your own happiness, which is a really powerful message. You know, like probably in this world, like power, power, the amount of power you have will determine the amount of happiness you have, and also will determine what you can protect to keep that happiness. So I really like that that was supposed to be his last words, but Shiki tried to be like, nope, that's not gonna be your last words. I refuse to accept them. I'm taking you to a hospital. You're gonna be good as new afterwards, and it's like, don't you dare die on me. And unlike unlike Shiki, his father cannot recover from uh, his wound enough, and he does end up dying, and that's that his last wish instead of Shiki being stronger is I hope one day Momotaro descendants and Oni descendants can stand side by side instead of actually fighting one another. And such a powerful message, just wanting unity instead of conflict. But the overall part that really made it saddening is the fact that Shiki now realized that the one of the last conversations before his father passed away was the fact that he rejected his father because they weren't blood related. But meanwhile, his father, despite not being blood related, despite him being an Oni, despite everything else, never rejected him. So that hurt probably Shiki a lot more. The fact that the father was always so much more accepting of him than he was ever accepting of his own father before his passing. And and then afterwards, somebody has to kind of interrupt Shiki from mourning his father, and it's another Oni that just suddenly appears and knocks him out. So we have Oni organization kind of like forming on one side, and then we get a bit of the higher ups from the Momotaro agency. It seems like these are like the oldest people, and they run the whole operation. And they're talking about how Momotaro agency has gotten weak throughout the years, and that if nothing is done, the Oni that are in hiding are gonna completely overpower them. So they have to get rid of them as soon as possible. And then we get the that not only is Shiki one of these Oni that's probably gonna join the secret organization, but the Onis have their own school where they teach Onis how to grow and get accustomed to their powers, which Shiki's gonna probably have to apply to and learn how to control his powers better, so that he never has to go berserk again and never has to forget what happened during that stage. So I am really enjoying this anime from what I've seen in this first episode. I'm gonna keep looking forward to covering it. And episode one, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. Takopi's Original Sin, episode 3. So one of the things I really enjoyed about this episode gives a small recap of what happened and how it went down, and really catching you up to speed to what the current situation is with Marina being gone. And then we meet the third character who has the most screen time this episode, because it does revolve around him and his own family situation and how it's affected him, and how much different he behaves with Shizuka and Takopi than with his own family. So Asuma kind of followed Shizuka, and when she came back all beat up, and with Takopi, he was just kind of like, oh wow. what is that thing, you know? And then he realized, oh, you guys murdered Marina. And both Takopi and Shizuka are kind of like, yeah, so what of it? And it just really goes to show kind of like the naive naivete that both Shizuka and Takopi have, where neither of them know the severity of the situation and what's what they have actually what Takopi has done or did in accident has actually caused could cause like a huge ripple effect and could actually do more harm than good. And she Shizuka just kind of put it off like, yeah, Takopi just used his magic and helped me out. But Asuma let her know, like, you could go to jail, or you could be taken there because nobody's gonna believe that this alien life form was the one that committed the act. You're gonna be the one that gets put the blame. And then she kind of was like, well, that wouldn't be any good because she wouldn't be able to see Chappie anymore. And she kind of like convinces Asuma to help her hide Marina any way he can. She's like, I'm not very smart. I don't read books like you. And I could really use your help this one time. And Asuma, like, not reluctantly, he sees her and sees how the kind of look she's given him, and he obliges to help her out. And they use one of Takopi's gadgets, which is kind of like this capsule, to put Marina in there, and then they use another gadget that we've seen Happy Takopi use, and it's about the one that changes his appearances, and he becomes the new Marina. And then they go and get shovels, and they dig it up and place Marina in one of the holes. And they didn't do a very good job because parts of it seemed like part of it didn't seem fully covered, which gonna play a major fact later on in the episode. But they had to make sure Takopi understood. Listen, you are playing Marina now. You cannot be your typical self anymore. You have to sell the act that you are Marina. So he goes and tries to do his best to copy Marina, but he still has his quirks. Like he still says P at the end of everything, so that undoubtedly is not gonna play well as always. And then we have Takopi goes to Marina's place and goes meets the parents, and he sees them arguing, but because that's never happened in his planet, uh, he doesn't understand that this argument is not necessarily one that they would say is love, because they're talking very serious stuff like divorce and how the mother feels trapped in the relationship or like in the marriage, and she just wanted to buy something for herself or for the house, and the father was like very reluctant to spend any more money on her. He felt that any of the money he was earning was being wasted on her. And he he didn't really have any problem wasting money on him because obviously he says he's the breadwinner, and he he deserves to be able to spend his money however he sees fit. But then we have more we have more stuff with Takopi, Asuma, and Shizuka. They start really trying to organize a plan to get Chappie because they come to realize, listen, we did something and we can't really be moving recklessly. At least Asuma. When I say they, I meant Asuma told them they can't move recklessly. And when they meet when Asuma's brother comes along, he well he didn't really see Asuma hanging out with them as much, so he was kind of taken, and everyone's like, "Oh, you have a brother?" And he's like, "Yeah, but you can." The way Asuma was talking about his brother, you could instantly tell that he doesn't have the best relationship with them, or he feels some type of way about him because he doesn't call him big brother. He just kind of is like, yeah, this is him. And one of the things that they kind of needed was money to get to fund for the trip. So they kind of plotted to steal his brother's ring that he bought because he started a part-time job, and to be able to sell it later on and teach him a lesson. Um, so Shizuka was the one that convinced him to try to do that. By the way, once again, playing her cute card against him, just you could kind of see that Shizuka at this point is kind of like knows that Asuma will do kind of anything she wants as long as she puts on a cute face. So it, at least to me, it became prevalent that at this point she was trying to use Asuma to further her goals any way that she could. So when we get to Asuma's place, he takes Takopi and obviously some of the gadgets Takopi carries with him, and they attempt to steal the ring, and they fail because the girlfriend calls them, and they decide it's better to go out the window, use one of the gadgets that lets them fly, and it almost ends up backfiring on them right away because Asuma falls because the wings can't handle human weight. It can only handle the Happinian weight, and luckily for him, Takopi is able to save him last minute, and we get Asuma completely breaking for a bit, and we learned why he kind of despises his brother, or has some inferiority complex when it comes to his brother, and that's because his brother has always been good at everything. He's always gotten the perfect scores. He's always taking been a good brother to him, but he doesn't like the fact that he's being punished because his brother was like the perfect child. So the mother, whenever Asuma did not bring a 100, she would like take away his food, and then the more it happened, the more Asuma kept trying to please his mother, and he kept failing and failing. So the mother really placed a placed this burden on Asuma to try to become perfect, and especially after she told him, your brother is always doing it. You're kind of, if you're not even, it feels like you're not even trying at this point. So you're just kind of making it seem like you're wasting our time talking about Asuma, and that's how the mother views Asuma, like a waste of time. So Asuma kind of takes that in and is internalizing it, and goes to see Shizuka. And Shizuka, despite him failing at getting the ring from his brother, she did not kind of belittle him for it. She kind of accepted that he didn't get the ring, and she decided, okay, we'll find another way. And this kind of broke Asuma, as he's not used to failing and being comforted by somebody. He's always at the idea that he has to be the perfect child, and just having somebody there that looks at you for who you are and doesn't expect anything more out of you kind of is soothing, and it puts puts off a lot of the weight that Asuma has been carrying in that moment. They still do have to uh, figure out a, another way to get to Chappie. So they start coming together more and hanging out more, and there's this nice montage where they're just hanging out, having fun. The music's nice, and it seems like happy times are coming back for all of them. And then we have to look more into Marina, as we see her pot starting to stick up. So that digging was not great. It's gonna get found out. Like you instantly know, oh, it's gonna get found out. What's gonna happen once it gets found out? So at one point, Asuma asks if there's any more gadgets that Takopi has and or that they can use because the ones he brought here to Earth were kind of ass. And Takopi's like, yeah, there's plenty of other gadgets back at home, but I'm not allowed to go back anymore. And that's kind of like alarming because Takopi never once mentioned not being able to go back. He always mentioned like he wanted to take Shizuka to go back home, but because the reason why he wanted to go back home is because they have a time travel machine there that can take him back in time. So that would be like the easiest route to fix everything. But for some reason, Takopi is now just remembering that he's not allowed to go back, and kind of leaves you wondering what could he have done that disallowed him to go back to his own home. But because he doesn't remember, he just carry on with them, and he goes and sees his Marina's mother and father again, once again arguing about what to do, and same thing about money, and they talk about how she's more uplifted now, how she doesn't seem to be as sad anymore when around them, and the father starts like asking Takopi like, listen, you want to go back to Papa's place, which for a moment you start to realize, oh, what Takopi was thinking before he thought about it. Takopi thought that that meant he was gonna be able to get Chappie back, so he instantly accepted Marina's father's offer about going back with him, without realizing that it meant something else, that entirely it meant that he was gonna have to leave Marina's mother there and go to some place unknown to him or to Shizuka or to anybody related to this incident. And as you instantly see the mother's kind of like seething in the corner, you don't really see her, but you can feel that she's seething, like she has something to get off her chest. And once the Takopi and the mother are by themselves, the mother starts questioning her like, hey, you've changed, Marina. You're not the one I used to know. The one I used to know never would betray me like you did. So then Takopi's like, yeah, well, it's like she gets infuriated by the way Takopi talks with Saint P at the end of everything, and she starts slapping him, and Takopi starts getting scared because I think this pretty much traumatized them to the time Marina was beating on him for becoming Shizuka, and then the mother at one point completely stops and just tells him like, I know you're not my girl. I don't know who you are, but please give her back to me. And she breaks down. And this is the moment when Takopi finally acknowledges that his actions had a severe consequence, where he realized that Marina had people that loved her waiting for her. And it is made even real apparent as Takopi looks around to all the photos that they have of the family being together, and he realized, oh, because I killed her, I took her away from her family. I took her away from her own happiness. I did that. And he realized there's nothing he can do anymore to bring her back because she's dead. And the one way he knows how to bring her back also kind of died along with her because it's bloodied and cannot be used anymore. And he can't even go back home to undo everything with the time machine there. So he really reflects regret. You can see he really regrets killing her, and then he reflects on his own actions, and starts to wonder if he could have done things differently, how he would have done things differently, and he apologizes to Marina and to her and to her foes because obviously he can't ever bring her back, so he is just destroyed mentally. And to make matters worse, the episode ends off with some workers finding Marina's body. So, Takopi's confession episode for me, 10 out of 10. Lord of Mysteries episode 4. So, episode starts off kind of like with this secret society kind of holding like a sort of like a meeting or like a punishment or made example out of whether this guy has had failed at collecting the notebook that we know is this secret society has been after all along. This secret order known as the Aurora Order. They're the secret entity that have been after this notebook along with the the Nighthawks. And now that the Nighthawks have their hands on it, the person responsible for retrieving it is getting punished for it, and they did this entity or this oracle person decides to give them one last chance to prove themselves, and that's when they decide to target Klein next. And I love that we get a bit more explanation on how this world works and how now we got even more information about this world and that it also possesses magic and certain things like rituals can enhance beyond their ability. So now it's really interesting to see that uh, Klein Klein has always had some sort of like magic to him, but now in this world there's like even higher there's even more power, right? So like the beyond ability is not the end meets all. You know, there's magic now also applied to the beyond abilities to enhance them. So really interesting that we're getting more power structure and more abilities because in this one we also see the person that Klein drank the potion from. He used this ritual and explained to him how it works and that it should not be used to communicate with the unknown. So like he can't use this to go into like the dark abyss or something and communicate with a, an entity that he has no idea or no clue how to control. So the way they used it was to locate this wallet that was gonna earn him £30, which end up did happening. But Klein was skeptical at first, and and now he realized, okay, well, if this can help me achieve what I want, you know, it can probably help boost my ability to go into the divine realm or my overall seer abilities as well. So really interesting stuff. He then goes on to this revelation place where he gets his future told to him, and essentially he wanted to find out if he was ever going to be able to head back home. And they told him, it's a rough patch, you're not getting there anytime soon, but if you keep continuing on doing what you're doing, you'll eventually get there. And to help them, he used the seer ability to notice that the guy needed some medical attention, told him to go get it done real quick. And one of the other things that was really interesting is that he wanted to join this club to further enhance his seer ability as well, because one of the guys in there was also like a seer. So this person used this trick called the magic mirror divination, which, you know, seems really sketchy at first, especially because it's given the title of the episode as well. And this guy kind of already was the guy we saw in the beginning of the episode where he was targeting Klein, and now that Klein was there, he kind of gave him some interesting tidbits like, listen, the way to your future is to focus on family gatherings. That's what I see in your future soon. So two things ended up going through my head, and that was like the divine realm was like the actual place of gathering, and I guess you could say the people that he brings there are could be like his own family of sorts. So my first thought was like, okay, so he's obviously think this is obviously kind of referencing the divine realm that Klein inhabits and controls, and that it could be like the key to anything. So so, so then later on, Klein does himself start jotting down notes of like, okay, what would happen if like there's a ritual that was directed towards me? Would that make it so that my beyonder abilities can enhance faster, or possibly just because I'm using the power of the divine realm on me, I can then go home essentially if I'm lucky. So it devises a plan to cast this ritual that would give him the power of the divine realm, and then he summons them, the his other followers or his other co-conspirators of Justice and the Hanged Man, which while they're there, they're kind of like, okay, he talks and he lets them know like, yeah, so don't worry about anything today. You can ask me whatever, and I'll answer promptly with no necessary pay needed or no heavy pay needed to pay. So Justice kind of asks them like, okay, so there's that's some three things, right? But one of them was what happens when what happens when a creature like a pet drinks a potion, and which is quickly answered because it's like it's either dead or it gains an ability. Simple enough answer. All right, cool. Then the next one was a bit more uh, difficult, where she gives like her own background, where like probably the kingdom's going to on a decline because of her family, and what could they do to like fix it and kind of establish the family to be of quality once again. And he kind of like just tells them, okay, well, you can just make this a thing like an exam where you have competent people show up at, and attempt it, and only those that are of high quality get to pass. But you don't just leave it up to the nobles, you also gather up the commoners and they give them a fair shot, and you'll start to see that with that prosperity will once again return to it. And he's like, well, we can kind of like establish this as a something known as a higher exam, which is like, okay, cool, he's really interesting. And also she asks her about like her abilities, how like to best use them, and the hangman kind of tries to tell her like she just needs to be like something there that's spectating, not necessarily moving the needle or anything, kind of be there without actually making herself known. And the fool, or Klein, and tells them like, yeah, you can do that, but you should actually digest and act upon things. So kind of gives her like this this great answer that she really needs to see, because one thing is to be able to just be a spectator, and the other thing is to actually be able to digest and act upon information that you gather as an spectator. So, and also something interesting happened this time in the divine realm, where he, I guess it's because of the ritual he put before, but now he's, or not because of the ritual, because he used his seer abilities in the divine realm. He noticed that they're stronger there than they are in the actual like world that he's in, and he's able to notice like certain signs behind the the hanged man and justice. So I think that's really interesting. It's gonna play dividends later on, and the only thing he really asks of them before sending them away is that they help him find this diary from Gustav, the the guy or like his predecessor that we've been hearing all about, how he has established a lot of the things that are well known here, like the tarot cards and stuff. And Hangman, just because he asked for the diary, he you could already see things are turning. Like it's not just anybody. He actually knows and thinks about everything that's happening. Like he thought, oh, he must, because he wants this thing, he must have find it to have some sort of value. Maybe he knows how to decipher it. And he's like, okay, well, clearly this guy is not just your average Joe. He's he sees him as this kind of like god, or like this entity that he needs to appease, or that he needs to keep around and worship. So they both agree uh that they will help him with that, and he also wanted them to help him perform this ritual on Sunday, which he agreed to go with his sister to this family gathering from one of her friends. And they're like, yes, we agree to that. So when they when Klein goes back, and then it's Sunday, they're about to go into this house. You could it's he this is one of the people that we meet earlier in the episode that was in the same like revelation place where he was at, and they kind of noticed him, and they realized that he was a seer. Like the sister of the birthday girl realized he was a seer, and promised not to really tell anybody, because it seemed like he was trying to keep his sister away from all this beyond their stuff. So she she agreed to not say anything until he was ready to tell her. But unlucky for her, things kind of like took a wrong turn when all the girls gathered and they started speaking to this divine mirror that was given to them by Vincent, the divine revelation person that Klein went to see earlier. And this mirror pretty much already oozed like bloodlust, or like a certain type of feeling that Klein immediately was attracted to. Like, oh yeah, I need to get rid of this. This is not looking good. And it turned Melissa, or Selena, one of them, into this monster creature. And as Klein did find a good way to use the ritual, where he was like, okay, well, I can probably use the ritual to save her. But even though he used it, it didn't work. Like the guy that was manipulating through the other side of the mirror kind of kept feeding into this divine mirror and making it more powerful, so that Selena was made even more vicious and more monstrous. And as soon as Klein kind of was about to like give up on life, the Justice started her own ritual that he wanted them to do. And earlier in the episode, and earlier before the party, the Hangman also was doing it. So Klein got right before he was about to lose consciousness, he regained it because he got a sudden boost of power thanks to Justice doing the ritual, and then he performed a ritual himself to help save Selena from this creature. Which, super interesting that the rituals was strong, just not strong enough at the moment when Klein first used it. He just needed a bit more. Uh, and also the timing couldn't have been perfect. I think Klein is one of the is becoming like a really interesting strategist, or a lot of his gambles are paying off. Which one of the one of the ways that the divine realm this ritual was supposed to work is that he was supposed to have extreme luck. So I guess it makes sense that at the last possible second, Justice performed the second ritual, which helped them escape. Really cool stuff. Uh, but because of everything that happened, Klein decided, okay, well, I kind of didn't want to tell her, but maybe I'll have to tell my sister this. But at the same time, he's having second thoughts, because he's like, well, I kind of want to keep her away from all this. It's like, but me being here will always keep endangering her like this. So I can only kind of guess that he's gonna get away from his sister and start uh, being on his own more, and just completely keeping her at a safe distance from himself. And obviously, because the ritual doesn't work, the Vincent, the guy that performed the divine mirror stuff, gets his just dues as somebody comes to visit him and ends up ending him. So Klein and Dunn decide to pay him a visit where they feel the energy was coming from, and as soon as they get there, Dunn tries to use his seer ability in Vincent, and he instantly realizes that they may have been way over it, as said, as he's seeing through the memories of this person. He notices that one of them has like this monster or like this godlike entity just coming down from the skies, which could be the true creator that they worship and stuff. And it'll be really interesting to find out like what this entails and what other members the Aurora Order has. Really, really great stuff. I'm really enjoying it. And episode ends off with Justice having to get ready for this ball or this party, whatever, and you could already see she has some stuff from her life that feel very restrictive, like not being able to wear what she wants to this ball or party. They instantly tell her like, no, you can't wear the same things twice. People will think we're broke, or will think we're on a decline. So we humbly need you to accept that you need to wear a new dress to this party. And she pretty much says, all right, I'll wear it, and starts dancing with her dog. And then the dog talks in the end. So we know the potion worked. The dog is now a Beyonder, and really great stuff. I think Lord of Mysteries has just kept building and building the lore, and more stuff just keeps piling on top of one another that's making it kind of hard to keep up. But if need be, maybe there'll be like a list of things that I'll keep intact for like next episode, and just jot down what plot points have been established and what things we need to keep looking out for. But other than that, man, this episode was great. Animation was superb. 9 out of 10 episode, and I think that's gonna be it for this episode. And if you like what I discussed, the animes that I talked about, you want to keep discussing or seeing more of the stuff, please subscribe to the channel, like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, bye.